Making It Grow is brought to you in part by Santee Cooper, South Carolina's state-owned electric and water utility. More information on green power and energy conservation programs online at santeecooper.com. The South Carolina Department of Agriculture, reminding you that certified South Carolina agricultural products help make South Carolina grow. McLeod Farms in McBee, South Carolina. This family farm offers seasonal produce, including over 22 varieties of peaches. Glory Foods, celebrating Southern food with a soulful heritage. Glory Foods, a way of inviting South Carolina back to the dinner table. FTC Diversified, a proud part of your local communities, providing communication, entertainment, and security. Art Fields, a 10-day art competition in Lake City, South Carolina. Additional funding provided by International Paper.
I was so excited. I looked way back in my closet this morning and found a shirt with long sleeves because finally, at last, it's fall. Doesn't it feel wonderful? I know we'll have a few more hot days, but I'm sure enjoying this beautiful, cool weather we've got right now. I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm Amanda McNulty with Clemson Extension, and we're bringing you an hour of gardening advice with ETV's Making It Grow, coming to you live and direct from downtown historic Sumter. So get your questions ready and call us up because we've got a great group here tonight to answer and give you good advice. Teresa Lott, of course, is in the chat room, and as soon as we go inside, she'll tell you how you can ask and answer questions there. Help her out and have a good time with her and all your fellow chatters. We, of course, love to take trips, and this time I stayed home and Vicky Bertagnolli went instead, and she went to Aiken, North Augusta, and visited a wonderful nursery that has all kinds of treasures abound. So many things that it got me tongue-tied just trying to talk about Nurseries Caroliniana. Of course, we also will have Dr. John Nelson with his mystery plant, and we have a special guest, a good friend, Val Hutchinson, who's going to tell us about a wonderful symposium where you can learn about sustainability, something we all should be aiming for. We've got great, smart people here to answer your questions, too. So get on the phone, and I'm going to go inside, and we'll meet our guest. Well, Teresa, I think we've had so much water that it just abounded all over my tongue and got me tongue-tied. Because we have had a lot of water, and also the temperatures are lower, and I think that means that we could probably cut back on watering and also be aware of some other things that maybe fall should and should not include.
Great points, Amanda. I'm glad you brought that up. So it is the time of the year when you might want to start putting on long sleeves, and plants, for the most part, are getting ready for a long winter's rest. I happened to notice the other day that there are some fertilizers out there that are touted to protect your lawn from winter injury, but do not be fooled. If you have a warm season lawn, you do not want to be applying any nitrogen-containing fertilizer after about mid-August because that stimulates growth, and we don't want the grass to start actively growing now. We want it to get ready for that nice long winter's rest so you'll have a nice lawn next year. If you'd like to chat with me this evening about your grass or your gardening problems, you can join me in the chat room. Go to the Making It Grow Facebook page. You'll want to be sure to use your favorite web browser to do that. Once you get there, click on the green Let's Talk icon. You'll be directed into the chat room. We already have 7 speakers, 1 viewer, so plenty of room and plenty of time. Just log in with your credentials from Facebook or Twitter, and we will be chatting very soon. Amanda, back to you.
Thank you. And of course, Teresa is a water quality expert. She's an extension agent over in Florence, and we really appreciate your coming over every week and helping us out. And of course, Teresa and Vicky, who I'm going to talk about in just a minute, are the mainstays of our chat room. Thanks to these 2 great agents for answering all those questions and putting up fun pictures. Teresa has a good camera and a good eye. And of course, Vicky Bertagnolli is a horticulture agent for both Lexington and Aiken County. And you're an entomologist.
I am.
And that's fun because this time of year, insects, is this kind of the peak of their population?
I tell you what, they are everywhere. They really are. You can see butterflies everywhere. There are still some caterpillars out. and fall webworms. The fall webworms are kind of gone, but they notice the webbing up in the trees still. So absolutely.
And a lot of people have been calling and they worry about that, but first of all, they're up in the tree, but I don't think they really do much damage, do they?
As long as the tree is good and healthy, they make it not very pretty, but they really don't do all that much. They'll defoliate right there in that silk web, but it'll be fine.
Okay. Well, thanks for making the trip and being with us today. And we are so happy when Dan Hill makes the trip from Kalmia Gardens, where you are a naturalist, and y'all have a lot of programs that go on there. And one of the things that's so much fun is the variety of plant life is kind of unusual. And you said it's because of the bluff, or explain the situation.
Absolutely. That part of the PD region is pretty flat, like a pancake.
Yeah,
and
like a pancake. That's pretty flat.
And anytime you throw topography into the mix, you get a whole new group of plants coming in. You get a whole new habitat. So on the backside of the upper surface of the garden is really formal. We have a 60-foot bluff that drops down to Black Creek, and that bluff makes its own little micro ecosystem of sorts. And that enables our namesake, Kalmia latifolia mountain laurel, to flourish on that northern bluff.
How hard is it to walk down there and experience the differences in elevation?
It's not that difficult. We have a series of stairs that go down the bluff, and then if you go around on the far side of the garden, there would be a gradual downhill slope that you could take.
And what are y'all's hours? How often are y'all open over there?
We're open dawn to dusk every day of the year.
I had a feeling that it was pretty easy to visit y'all.
Yeah, our gates are always open.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful place. If you haven't been to Kalmia Gardens, put it on your fall calendar. What a great time to go over there. The asters are in full bloom. And we have somebody who's blooming here. She is just a radiant friend of ours. Val Hutchinson is a Master Gardener and Master Naturalist. And she has come to tell us about an exciting event that's coming up. Val?
Yes, the Midlands Master Gardener Symposium is coming up on October the 23rd. It'll be an all-day event. We have great speakers, and we're going to be talking about sustainability and the changes you can make in your individual landscape that will mean a lot to wildlife.
Well, thank you. Everybody likes to know that they can make a difference, and I'm going to look forward to learning about how we can do that when I come to visit you. And now we're going to check in with our favorite professor at the University of South Carolina, and that would be none other than John Nelson himself. Dr. John?
Well, hey, Amanda. I'm having a nice evening here.
Which one is that?
Well, that's Rosie.
Rosie, hey, Rosie. Hey, Rosie.
Terrible girl.
Oh,
and,
sweet Rosie.
And Hannah's over there.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope one day we may have to get you a rescue so that you can have another pet. You know, Teresa's a rescue coordinator, so I may get y'all.
I know that.
Get y'all chatting. But the main thing we like to chat with you about is botany, and you know, people love this time of year. The asters are blooming, and who can tell those DYCs apart? Those darn yellow composites. But if you have a DYC that you don't know what it is, I bet we could send it to you, and you'd tell us what it is, John.
I bet you could, Amanda. And we're happy to take a look at any unusual or unknown or kooky plants that you might have for which you want a name attached. And we'd be happy to look at a picture of it. You could send it to us as an email attachment, or you could actually bring it by if you want to. If you're close to Columbia and it's convenient, just give me a call, and I'd be happy to, make whatever arrangement we need to, figure out what you've got.
Well, you're one of the few people, other than the dry cleaners, who give curbside service, John. Your herbarium is a treasure to the citizens of South Carolina, and your generous nature that you and your staff have just makes it even more of a treasure, and we appreciate it. And we're going to come back a little later and have a mystery plant.
Well, gosh, Amanda. Okay, we'll look forward to the mystery plant installment.
Okay, we'll see you in just a little bit.
All right.
Okay. We've got our first caller. How about that? Bob is calling us from the capital city. I hope it is not so famously hot there today, Bob.
No, it isn't. It's pleasant. I worked out in the yard all day.
Oh, I'm so envious. I'm glad you got some chores done. Well, what did you run into that we might be able to help you with tonight?
I have what I call black-eyed Susans, but it could be a coneflower.
Oh.
Can I just go ahead and prune those back, or do they reseed, or what?
Well,
They've been brown for a couple of weeks now.
The flower heads or the leaves are brown?
the flower's all gone, but the leaves are still green.
Okay. Well, he's got this nice whatever it is. It's either a black-eyed Susan or Rebecca, and and the leaves are still green. So I guess it's still photosynthesizing. What do you think?
If the leaves are green, it is definitely still photosynthesizing. And personally, at the gardens, we like to leave those seed heads on the plant for the birds, absolutely. So it's a great food source for our native birds, native wildlife.
And I mean, if he wants to, if they're green, unless they're right in front of your house and causing a problem, I don't see any reason not just to leave them. Do you, Vicki?
I don't see any problem with it. And personally, I leave mine too. As a matter of fact, I went and pulled all the seeds off the seed heads and spread them out.
I did the same thing. Yeah,
I did that this morning.
Yeah. So I hope that'll help you some. And just, some of those things really can be a nice food source a little bit later in the winter. Jane is calling us from Lancaster. Jane, we're so glad that you called us tonight. And what's happening up in your part of the world?
I've got watching your show, and I've got 2 questions for
All right.
you.
Okay.
First one is, I have a friend that has a dwarf apple and a dwarf pear tree.
All righty.
But they're growing way out of bounds. I mean, tall.
Okay.
And she wants to know when to prune them or what to do about them.
All righty. And what's your other question?
And my other question is, when do I move perennial hibiscus?
Perennial hibiscus. Okay. Well, since you've got kind of a Johnny Appleseed hat on, I'll let you take the apple, the dwarf. I thought it was going to be dwarf apple and dwarf pear. When to prune them? Try to get them back in shape.
That is a really good question, and I've got some friends who have fruit trees as well. I'm not really a fruit tree person, but everyone who asks me that question, I actually refer them to the Clemson Home and Garden page. That's a wonderful page. It's got some really good information and diagrams on how to prune fruit trees.
It does. And Vicki, I think if you went there, would you think that probably it would say February would be a good time to start that pruning? January or February?
It'd say late winter.
Late.
Mm-hmm. And those fact sheets are really good because it'll give you a diagram of what it should look like.
The scaffolding?
Yep, the scaffolding, and it's great. Those are one of those trees that you'd prune in the wintertime, and you kind of prune it and stand back and look at it to make sure that you're getting the structure right, because you want it to act right in the spring.
And as an entomologist, it always intrigues me that when we look at spray schedules, sometimes you're even supposed to spray
before there's anything on it.
So tell me why that. Why would you spray when there's nothing there?
You're targeting certain life stages. And, the plants are setting buds. There may not be actual leaves out, but there's going to be buds on there, and there's things that attack the buds. And then as soon as the buds open, the flowers are going to open, and you have to target when these insects are going to be around.
Right.
And so there's a great spray schedule on HGIC.
Yes, there is. And
also.
we've got, you can see there is the website, HGIC is.
Yep, there's a great example of the scaffolding in there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank y'all in the studio for showing that. And it really is important to try to get that right. And then she's got some perennials that she wants to, what was it, perennial?
I think it was a hydrangea.
Hibiscus, yeah.
Hibiscus,
yeah. And they kind of completely died back. I don't have much woody structure on mine in the winter. When would you try to divide it now or wait until the spring?
Geez, I don't know. I mean, you think you could get away with doing it now? You think that would be all right, or would spring be a better time?
I kind of wonder if it's going to make it through the winter if you move it now.
Yeah.
And I think I might move it in the spring.
And sometimes the things that have that kind of punky wood, I don't cut them back because I feel like if I cut them, that hollow stem might let.
Yeah,
just kind of mulch it and let it
I'd mulch it and leave it.
Okay, and then in the spring when you see the new growth, maybe that would be the time.
Just make sure that you dig the root ball big enough.
Okay,
yeah.
Great, okay. Well, we had a lot of fun with your question, Jean. Thank you so much. Cynthia's calling us from Winsboro. Cynthia, you sure live in a beautiful little town. How are things looking up there?
Pretty good, Miss Amanda. How's things going tonight?
Well, so far so good, unless you're going to stump us with your question.
Well, I hope not.
What you got for us?
Well, Miss Amanda, I had a neighbor cut down what I call a crabapple tree.
Uh-huh.
And I have noticed in the backyard that I have these saplings just shooting up all over the backyard. I've never seen such a mess before in my whole life, and I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of them.
Oh, goodness. You know, those sometimes they just want to keep on living, don't they? And that's good unless it's coming up in your backyard. Do you think this would be a time when you would use the cutting and the painting with the glyphosate?
That's what I would like to do. Now the thing
Would you
is,
explain that to us?
whenever you cut a tree down, the root system is going to shoot out suckers because it's trying
wants to
its
stay
hardest to
alive.
live.
Yeah.
It's going to do anything it can to live. So it's going to throw suckers out, and it's going to have leaves on it and everything. And you can take them; they're real soft. They're they're
Tender.
water sprouts. Clip them off right there at the root, and then you can paint or leave a little bit of stub. And you can take the stump and vine formulation of glyphosate, and that's the active ingredient in something like Roundup. And you can paint it, and every time it sprouts, cut it off and paint it.
And I've heard too, Dan, that you shouldn't go and cut and then go inside and watch your favorite TV show because it'll callus over. Should you just kind of make it all one action, cut and paint and cut and paint?
Cut and paint at the same time, because as soon as you cut it, that wound's going to want to heal itself.
Okay, and just get a cheap little paintbrush or one of those sponge brushes.
You get one of those little sponge brushes
It costs
and
about
do
$1. Okay, we hope that will help you, and I'm sorry that she lost her crabapple, but we'll hope that'll help you get your backyard back as your backyard and not the apple orchard of crabapple seedlings. Somebody who's not crabby at all is Dr. John Nelson, although sometimes he does come up with plants that make us kind of puzzle and make a funny look on our face. Dr. John, we're going to come to you for the mystery plant.
You know, Amanda, my students sometimes think that I'm crabby.
Well, they need to bring you a good sandwich every day before they go to lab. I figured that out real quick.
They haven't figured that out yet.
Students, pay attention. Tell us what fascinating plant we have tonight, Dr. John.
Well, tonight I think we have a plant that comes from Mexico that's been grown a lot in North America, Florida, and points north. And this plant I photographed this morning, it was drizzly this morning on campus, but I thought it was such a pretty plant, it would still make a nice, attractive picture. It's obviously got very, very beautiful flowers. And I think if you know anything about botany, you'll recognize that it's in the bean family. And it makes these beautiful, beautiful flowers, and the buds form a sort of a candle-like arrangement above the stem. It's got beautiful foliage too. Now, this plant, you might see this growing around central South Carolina, maybe a little bit farther north, and it usually just grows as an annual. I think the winters will kill it. But down south, it will actually become a small shrub or even a tree. And then, of course, in its native range, it becomes a small tree. It does produce these gorgeous leaves that have, they're compound, of course, compound leaves, and there are two leaflets at the end of the leaves, rachis, that's what we call it. And then it will produce a bean, because it's in the bean family. And the bean is a very interesting structure. It's sort of got these little rounded teeth along the edges. And it's just a gorgeous thing. Looks like candles to me.
It is.
Or maybe
beautiful.
a candelabra.
So it's in bloom right now.
Right
at the
now,
university.
at least on our campus.
Okay.
And they tell me one other thing about this is if you do have seed pods of this thing, ripe seed pods, that is pretty easy to grow from seed.
Whoa. So you could collect some of those seed pods and bring some. I think you're going to be with us next week. Maybe you bring some down to the station if you find some that are dry.
I could, unless Charlie Ryan cuts them all down on he's our grounds.
Charlie, stand back. Okay. And Charlie, of course, is the horticulturist who's been such a wonderful help to Patricia Pastides in her beautiful garden, I believe.
That's right.
Okay. Well, who thinks they've got an answer for us?
I'll make a guess, but I don't remember if does it start with an S?
Oh,
no.
No, I don't know. I didn't look either. Well, make a guess.
I was guessing Sesbania, something like that.
Sesbania, or he said it looked like candles, so we might just try to go for a common name.
I've seen it in a botanical garden. I cannot think of its name.
Is it cassia?
That's what I'm thinking of.
It is a cassia.
That's what I'm thinking
Okay.
of.
And we place it in the genus Senna right now. That's the more precise
Okay.
way to
That's
do
what
it.
I was guessing.
So
That was the S I was
yeah,
guessing.
okay. So Vicky, of course, was right because she's
Darn it.
young and she's learning all the new names. Candelabra plant. John, Val Hutchinson, who I'm sure you know, is with us, and she was bringing some things, and she had something that looked kind of like that. Val, I don't know if we've lost that piece or not, but is sickle pod a part of the cassia family, or is that or what does that fall in?
Yeah, there are several things in this genus that used to be called cassia, and now they're generally put in the genus Senna. And sickle pod, sure enough, is one of them.
Well, how
That's
about
also
that?
a tropical species
Okay.
that's
Well,
introduced.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was beautiful. That was a lot more fun than some of them, even if we didn't get it right. John, thank you so much. And I wanted to tell you what a good time I had at the symposium, and I look forward to having you with me next week, in person.
That's right, and good to have you this past Saturday, and I look forward to being there next week.
All righty. You can bring Rosie if you want to. Okay. Bye-bye. Maybe. Okay. We have Althea, who's calling us from the Holy City, Charleston. Althea, how are things down your way?
Well, it was quite rainy all day today, but my question is pertaining to the lawn. What type of treatment the lawn needs this time of the year? I have centipede grass in the front and St. Augustine in the back.
Well, I think we've already talked about that's kind of nice because you can do other chores. What advice would you give for Vicky?
Yeah, this is a great time to put the mower up, maybe do some maintenance. You really don't have to apply any chemicals to it. There's no chemicals to apply right now.
No fertilizer?
Absolutely no fertilizer. Fertilizer should have been done in July. There's really no insecticide you need to put down right now, just making sure that your mowing height is correct.
And we do lower the mower height, and that again can be found at HGIC, can it?
There's wonderful fact sheets. They're called maintenance calendars.
Yes.
And there's one for centipede, and there's one for St. Augustine, there's one for Bermuda, and there's one for fescue and all this kind of stuff. But it'll tell you exactly what to do at different times of the year, and it tells you, it breaks it down even. Mowing height, it tells you insecticide, tells you herbicide. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and if people would just pay attention to it, they'd have a lot fewer problems with their lawn.
Absolutely.
Well, and if people would pay attention to what Teresa tells us, we would probably have cleaner water in our surface waters. And Teresa, I guess right now you're going to give us an update on the chat room.
You are correct. We have about 15 people in the chat room right now, so a good crowd, but plenty more room. If you haven't joined in, why not give it a try? I promise we won't bite, or at least not very hard. Lots of good conversation going on. A good place for you to ask a question or even just kind of sit back and read what's going on. I often direct questions to other people, and so we had a question about identifying a tree, but it's very hard with only some general descriptions about how tall it is and that it has rough bark. And so I've asked this person to send a good picture overall of the tree so we can get an idea of overall shape and size, as well as a close-up of the leaves with something in there for scale, so like a pencil, a quarter, so we can get an idea of the size of the leaves. And then this person was thinking there was some kind of substance coming out, so if we can get a picture of that as well. And I'm going to send that on to Dr. Nelson in hopes that he can identify the tree. So,
Teresa, I had a question for you. We had a Hort team training today that Powell Smith, our leader, put on for us, and we had some really wonderful speakers from the University of Tennessee, and they were talking about how important it was to put the right plant in the right place to avoid having a stress plant. I know fall's the time for plant. Do y'all have a program with the Carolina Yards or anything that helps people choose the right plants?
We sure do. That is one of the principles of Carolina Yards, and Carolina Yards is environmentally friendly landscaping program. You can find more information at clemson.edu/CY, CY for Carolina Yards, or just use your favorite search engine and type in Carolina Yards and you should find more information. But it's really important to put the right plant in the right place in terms of success, so you don't have to keep trying to make the plant happy in a place that it really isn't, and then also in terms of fertilizer needs, drought tolerance, just all sorts of things. And so So there's even a searchable plant database on that website where you can put in different characteristics that you might be looking for, and it will generate a customized list based on those characteristics that you enter.
Thank
Amanda?
you so much, Teresa, and that's a wonderful site and will help people avoid a lot of problems. Mike is calling us from Anderson. Mike, have you got a plant that's in the wrong place? And if you do, what's going on?
Well, I've got a smoke tree, and I've got Palisade zoysia.
Uh-huh.
And I've got a cherry tree next to it in my front small yard.
Okay.
How should I cut the smoke tree, and how should I fertilize the Palisade zoysia?
Well, why do you want to prune the smoke tree?
Well, because it's a very small yard.
Oh. Okay. So he has. Okay. He's got a tree that he feels like is a little too big for the space. Dan, I guess he could try to kind of keep it within bounds, but I wouldn't prune now. If I were going to prune, I would wait till later. What would you do?
Yeah, and then I definitely wouldn't prune it too hard because smoke trees, they have a really neat shape, unique shape, and I would, if it was mine, I would hate to lose that shape.
He could root prune it and find another home for it. I mean, this would be a good time to root prune and find, if it's, because it's just going to be a constant battle to try to keep it in bounds.
Right, it'll keep growing and growing.
And he wanted to learn about fertilizing, and zoysia is a warm season grass, I believe.
It is.
So help us out with what we should do with zoysia this time of year,
So
please.
it's one of those things that we don't want to put any fertilizer on this time of year because if it greens up, that new succulent growth is probably going to get hit by frost.
And then damage and disease entry.
We want to wait and get a soil test, and the soil test will tell us exactly when to fertilize.
Wonderful.
But there is, just like with the other grasses, there is a zoysia maintenance calendar on the HGIC, and it tells you exactly what to do all throughout the year for zoysia.
And I think what we were talking about is that Mike's run into something, so many of us have things that we just love and we want one of everything. And sometimes we just have to kind of decide what it is that we can have, because a tree, most plants are healthier if you allow them to achieve their natural size. So good luck, but root pruning is something you can find out about very easily if you call your local office or just search it up. And that you could do that and perhaps move it to another part if you have a larger backyard, and maybe keep that tree in its natural form. Brenda's calling us, and she lives real close to me. She lives in Orangeburg. I'm right in St. Matthews. Hey, Brenda, how's everything over there by the Edisto River?
Oh, it's doing great.
Good.
Kind of cloudy.
Yeah, but it's good. We needed a little rain.
Yes. My question is, I had 2 polony trees that were planted in my front yard.
2 what kind of trees?
Polony.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, they were too close to my power line, so I had them cut down.
Yes.
And there's saplings coming up. I want to know what's the best thing to get rid of the sapling.
Okay. And actually, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea that they cut them down, because that tree tends to be invasive, especially as you move on up. I went to Tennessee, and oh my goodness, the whole every native plant had just been displaced by Polonia.
It was just like in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Georgia, same way.
Yeah, and so she's got these Polonias that were cut down, and now she's got this. So can you help somebody else, and she's probably tuned in a little later. So would you explain that cut and paint method once again?
Whenever you cut a tree down, it's going to send up shoots.
Yes.
Trying as hard as it can to live.
All right.
And what you're going to do is clip it off. You can use just shears and clip it off, and there'll be a little stub left over. You can get you one of those cheap styrofoam, not styrofoam, they're foam. Paint brushes, and paint some the stump and vine strength of glyphosate on there.
Okay.
And every time it comes up, cut it and paint it.
And glyphosate is what we used to call, is the active ingredient, what we call Roundup, so that'll help you. But it's sold under lots of different trademarks now, but it will work very well for that. And actually, it's interesting because some people think, well, it's kind of the plants are going dormant, but I think they're actually moving things down to the roots. So sometimes it's a good time to do that. Well, one thing that we could all agree it's a good time to do is to go and visit Val Hutchinson, because she's just a treasure and brings such cheer with her all the time. So I'm going to make my way over there while Teresa tells us what's going on in the chat room. Teresa?
Thanks, Amanda. Actually, I'd like to share a photo that was submitted by Janice Weekland. I think she was trying to stump us because she sent a picture that she took in Pennsylvania. And I said, how in the world am I going to identify this? But it didn't take very long to come up with an educated guess. And thank goodness for Dr. John as a resource. He says that indeed this is Amaranthus caudatus, or the common name is called Love Lies Bleeding. And it gets that name from these drooping red flowers, bright red. It's kind of hard to tell from this photograph. It's not a native species. It is found in India, Peru, but what is really neat about it is that in dried arrangements, the flowers keep that vibrant red color. So it would be something good that you could add to a dried arrangement and still keep that color. So some nice fall decorating. It seemed to go with the fall theme. Now let's check in with Amanda and her guest and learn about some native plants.
Val Hutchinson is a master gardener and a master naturalist, and she has come to tell us about a symposium that I think the Midlands Master Gardeners have coming up. So what's this all about?
That's right, Amanda. Last year we had Douglas Tallamy come and talk to us about the importance of native plants and how we're losing, in the last 40 years, we've lost 50% of our birds, and how we have to make drastic changes in how we landscape our yards and bring more native plants into it. So our symposium, we have Jenks Farmer coming to speak, Yancey McLeod, Powell Smith, and then we have a panel of master gardeners, Jackie Jordan,
extension agent.
Yes, Maureen Mitchell and myself, and we're going to talk about bees, attracting bees, and the importance of native plants. And so I went out in my yard tonight and just cut some things to show people that really Mother Nature's trying to help us bring these native plants back. She's planting them all the time.
Yes, she is. And sometimes we just get too tidy and we need to leave some of them.
That's right.
Well, let's talk over here. You've got a vine over there that I think is dear to many people in the South. What is that one?
It is our native grapevine, muscadine vine. Has wonderful fruits for birds, and insects feed on it as well.
And then in the same little container with that is a plant that I just dearly do love.
It's one of my favorites too, Amanda. Wax myrtle, and now my plants the exotics that I planted have all died away, and I'm letting the wax myrtle come up through everything, and it has it's a beautiful plant. You can make a hedge out of it.
Yes.
But it has those blue fruits on it that are so important for wildlife. And it has that good smell to it.
Yeah, you can crush the leaves. And if you feel a little faint, you can just crush the leaves and it'll perk you up on it. Yeah.
It is.
And then right here is I believe one of our oaks. And why are oaks so important?
Oaks really provide more food for more lepidoptera or butterfly and moth species than any other plant. Over 500 species. And that doesn't include the acorns that feed the deer and all the other mammals that depend on it too. So oak trees are fabulous to have in your landscape, and there's live oak and laurel and willow oak. But this one popped up. I haven't actually planted any of these plants. Mother Nature is trying to help us replant.
She was the original
earth.
Gardener, wasn't she?
She was, and she got it right. So we're trying to learn from her.
And I think what happens is that as the earth was coming along, in North America, caterpillars evolved to be able to eat certain plants, the Lepidoptera larvae. And so you've told me that the birds, even birds that normally eat seed, want to come and eat these little caterpillars. Are they important when they're feeding their young, or what's the importance?
Yes, most people know the little Carolina chickadee, the cute little black cat bird. Well, that little bird needs between 5,000 and 9,000 caterpillars just to raise one clutch. One little family. So if we're out spraying all these caterpillars with Sevin dust and all this other, we're killing their food source.
And if we can have these plants in our yard, they don't have to fly so far to find food. The grocery store becomes close to home.
That's exactly how Mother Nature planned it.
And then this looks like a very typical plant, native plant that we found. Is it important also to wildlife?
This is the red maple, and what is so important about this plant, it's one of the first bloomers. So for nectar feeding insects, this red maple will tide them over in February when there's nothing else blooming, and then the other later bloomers will fill in the gaps later on. So So this is, and it's a wonderful plant near a lake or a pond because it puts out roots at any place on its trunk. So it's a survivor.
It does like some. I see it when I ride back and forth in the river bottoms, and it's beautiful there. And you're right. In February, I'll see it already blooming.
Yes.
And then as we move over, we come to I think everybody's wonderful favorite, our native dogwood.
Yes, and
these beautiful red berries.
It is, and birds love those berries. All kinds of birds will eat these berries, but the bluebirds are mainly insect eaters, but they will even eat these berries to keep alive when the insect population is low, when it's cold outside.
So just like us, we may have our favorite foods, but when you're hungry, a lot of things come in handy, and you're glad to have them.
There's a lot of fats and carbohydrates in these berries.
In these fruits. And then as we move over, oh, what a fun plant. It's got a fancy name for the leaves, polymorphic, different leaf shapes. And what is this great plant called?
Yes, and I love it. I'm sorry that I brought such a pitiful specimen, but it's sassafras, and it's a nice medium-sized tree. And these are some leaves are shaped like mittens, and others, had the three segments of the leaf.
And some are entire.
Yes.
And in the fall, I think this one gives us some beautiful color in the garden.
It does, and they have popped up along my driveway where nothing else was growing, and I'm letting them grow. I'm kind of letting Mother Nature paint the landscape, and they're creating a little forest going down my driveway, and I love that.
And then down in front, we have a plant that has wonderful red fruits, and what are they good for?
And people will see these growing along the highway a lot of times. This is winged sumac, and the berries themselves are filled with nutrition. Even humans can eat them. They say they taste like lemonade. But they're little spiders that live between the berries, and you can see the winged part between the opposite leaves kind of going up the stem there, and that's a way to identify it.
And then right down in front is a plant a lot of people fuss about, but I think it's wonderful for wildlife.
It's wonderful. The Virginia creeper is the host plant for some species, and one is the Virginia creeper sphinx moth, and I saw one on my porch one time. It got caught on the inside of my porch, and I thought, what is that huge moth?
I know they're big.
And they're very interesting looking, but that has wonderful wildlife value, and it's pretty vigorous in the landscape.
Okay. All right, and so again, y'all are going to have a full day of activities where people can come and learn about sustainability and how they can get with the movement. And I think at the end of the show, you're going to give us a website so we can be sure that we can go and find out all the contact places to go.
I'll be sure to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we're going to take a wonderful trip to North Augusta. Vicky Bertagnolli went and visited with a good friend of ours, and boy, did they see some wonderful plants.
Gardeners are always looking for plants that are unique and unusual. And we're here today with Gerald Stephens with Nurseries Caroliniana in North Augusta, South Carolina, where the unusual is usual.
Right. We have a lot of real rare stuff, real regular stuff, but my brother is the plant collector, and he collects different plants all over the world, mostly like England and Japan. And one of the unique things about getting it from Japan is the climate there is very similar to ours, especially around Tokyo. So they know what works where we are because it works there.
So one of the plants that you guys bring back are Japanese maples.
Right.
Tell us about some of your favorites that are here.
Well, this might not be some of Ted's favorites and a collector's favorite, but one of my favorites is a tree, Japanese maple. It's a lace leaf, but it's upright, and it's green leaf, but it gets really large, and it's a really soft green that blows in the breeze really good. But it's just a neat tree. Another one that they brought back several years ago is called Ryusen, and it's a weeper, and it's a true weeper. If you didn't stake it, it'd probably crawl all over the ground, but we stake it up, and it makes it just a real neat weeping tree.
Another one of the plants that is very popular here are osmanthus. Tell us about some of the osmanthus that you have here.
That's probably our most popular plant, is one called Fooding Jew. And you know how tea olive is, the regular osmanthus fragrance.
You'll usually smell them before you see them.
Yes, because the flower is so small. Well, this one, when it starts blooming in August or September, you can see it at 100 yards. It's just amazing, but the fragrance is still as good. Then we've got the orange tea olive, which is a really popular one.
Now, are we talking about the foliage, or are we talking about the flowers are orange?
The flower is orange, and it blooms usually in October. I always say October 15th for about 2 or 3 weeks, but it is stunning when it blooms. It is so orange, and the flowers are so large, and it is extremely fragrant. It's just a really neat osmanthus. Then we've got a lot of the holly-looking tea olives, and they will bloom eventually, but most of the time they don't. But we've got some of the really variegated forms of it. Tea olives are just really popular, and they take a lot of different situations. Some of them will take full sun and full shade, so it works real good. In most of the state of South Carolina, it's just a great plant.
Tell us about some of the hostas that you have here.
We've probably got about 60 varieties of hosta also, and one of my favorites is a small leaf hosta that we for years couldn't grow well, or Ted was saying it was just hard to grow, it wouldn't do, so he threw it out. And when he threw it out, it was in the full sun, and it just flourished in full sun. So it's called cabotan, but it likes full sun. And it makes a nice little, almost like a ground cover, because it doesn't grow but about less than 6 inches high. But it still has the little flower, but it has the little variegated leaves. It's really a neat little hosta. But there's the yellow varieties, and that'll just have really big leaves. There's the variegated forms that just have a real large variety of those.
Walking through the nursery, one of my favorite plants is one of the daylilies. It's very large and showy. Tell us about that daylily.
Okay, it's a daylily that gets 5 or 6 feet tall, the flower head. The foliage is normal, but the flower comes up and it's 5 or 6 feet, and it's called autumn minuet. And it's just a real nice, it probably blooms for 4 to 6 weeks, and it's just a really neat, because of the height. I mean, you can stick that behind other things and it'll just come jumping out above everything.
Which is unusual, because usually you have to put your daylilies up front.
Right. Well, this one you can put behind, because it's going to get there.
Now, this nursery has developed several different plants, and one of them that you guys have developed is a holly.
Right. There's a native holly to South Carolina and Georgia, the beaches, the sand dunes of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia, called Yopon holly. And it's Ilex vomitoria. The foliage was used to make a tea as an ipecac back in the, and it's called black tea, and the Indians used that. Well, we developed, or my brother developed one that's a compact grower, probably grows about 4 feet or so, but it's one of the heaviest berrying hollies there is. The neat thing about the berries on the Yopon is it's very red, but it's very translucent, so it looks like it's almost, you can see through it, but it's real red. And it berries up so nice at Christmas time. So it's really a nice, and we call it Carolina Ruby.
Another plant that Nurseries Caroliniana has developed is a loropetalum. Tell us a little bit about
Well, we've got one that, you know, the loropetalum first started off with a green leaf and a white flower. Well, probably back in the 90s, they discovered one that had a pink flower with a maroon colored leaf, and gets rather large. Well, Ted kept getting developing seedlings of that one that has the pink flower with the maroon leaves, and he's got one now that has a real deep, dark maroon foliage that's real glossy, but it also has a red flower or a reddish pink. And it's really neat, and it's called Garnet Fire. And that's going to be one of our trademark plants. But it's just a really, really neat color.
Gerald, thank you for having us at Nurseries Caroliniana and showing us all of these wonderful plants. And I know that home gardeners are going to want to be able to learn more about your plants. So tell us how to find you.
Well, go on our website. That's the easiest, and it's nurcar.com or nurcar.com. And also our phone number is 803-279-2707. And just give us a call and we'll help you.
Thanks so much for having us out, and I can't wait to get the lilies started at my house.
Great.
A remarkable nursery with extremely kind, sweet, and intelligent family members involved who will help you to the nth degree, won't they?
Absolutely. They're very, very knowledgeable.
Yes.
These folks, you can walk into that nursery and Gerald's he's kind of one of those plant geeks.
Yeah.
And he can tell you about diseases, and he stays up to date. They're wonderful.
Yeah, culturally, everything, any advice that
They're
you need.
very, very educated. They know every single little detail about all the plants that they sell.
And then the remarkable plants that Ted has brought back on his visits has just really opened up so many opportunities because he finds ones that will live in South Carolina.
They bring back amazing plants, and they're very unique. And they always bring back stuff that will do well in South Carolina.
Isn't that great? That's nice, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
Because we can't all be 24/7 in the garden.
I absolutely know that. Well, talk about 24/7. What these flowers? You've got berries that are different colors and flowers. These are wonderful. What is it?
Well, it kind of felt like fall. This little red vine is a native called cocculus, and I just love it. I see it, and it's dioecious, so they're male and female varieties. And then, and it doesn't get real big. And I haven't been able to transplant one yet, and I haven't seen it in the trade, so I'm going to look for one. But it's just a little native vine. Doesn't get too big, but aren't those shiny?
Is it climbing, or is it kind of?
Yeah, it's climbing on a little chain link fence. That's where I usually find it.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love the colors.
And then, of course, that little wild, I guess it's not really wild, but that little ageratum that you see on the side of the road. I don't know why people want to plant that little squatty one when you can get the nice big one.
I like the tall ones.
The taller one
It's a
too.
wonderful color
Yeah,
this
it's
time
fun,
of year.
isn't it? Yeah. And I wanted to say too, since Val had talked about Virginia creeper, that I've been fortunate enough to write a column for South Carolina Wildlife DNR's magazine. That's award-winning, not because I'm in it, but because other people do such wonderful articles. But in this latest issue, I have an article that talks about Virginia creeper and poison ivy. They're in the same group, and their value for wildlife. So if you haven't seen this wonderful publication that's put out by your South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, I hope you will look at it because it's something to be proud of as a South Carolinian. Let's see who's calling us now. Stuart is calling us from Chapin. Stuart, we're glad to hear from you. And what's happening over there in Chapin?
Oh, not much, but McNulty, a really good show tonight.
Thank you so much. That's because I got all these great people on it.
Well, it's great. And the lady with all the plants, I never thought that 500 different kind of oak trees is just amazing.
Isn't that over 500 different Lepidoptera larvae eat oak trees, and then the birds come and eat the Lepidoptera larvae?
That's amazing. I was saying about our birds just a minute ago. Our chimney swifts aren't near here like they were last year. We must have had 30 or 40, in our fireplace here. But this year I only see about 8 or 10. So, my question was about another invasive species. I think it was brought over from Japan, kudzu. My daughter just bought a little house in Lexington, and her backyard is getting kind of taken over with kudzu. And I didn't want to kill the dogwoods and the oaks and such as that, and the privet, and I was just hoping you could help me with, you and Vicky, maybe with taking care of that kudzu.
Okay, and actually the privet is an invasive species and perhaps does more damage even than kudzu. So you can read about that too, and you might be able to eliminate both of them. I know you probably have to deal with a lot of these problems on y'all's property. Y'all have a big property. What advice would you give him for trying to eradicate the kudzu and the privet?
I heard for the kudzu, I heard a really interesting thing that if you go back and the crown of the kudzu, right at the root, I guess right where the root and the ground come together, the crown of the plant, if you can pop that off, you'll kill the plant. No herbicides, nothing else needed. And if you get that crown off the kudzu root, it'll kill it. You can do herbicide applications, but it's a tough plant. You have to keep applying, and you really, it's a big time battle. But I would suggest getting to that, getting to the crown. In the upstate, there's a group that they have Kudzu College.
Yes, they do.
And if you could contact them, they could probably give you a little more detailed information on what to look for and how to get the crown. And with the privet, that's another difficult one at the garden. I use a couple of different techniques. I'll do a foliar application with glyphosate. You can do hack and squirt, where you just kind of cut out around the bark and apply herbicide, or cut the tree down and do a cut stump application, which is what we were talking about earlier.
And George Dickert, if you call the Spartanburg office, he could give you the information on that kudzu eradication and give you several different strategies to use, or if you want to call me and Sumter, I'd be glad to talk to you a little bit more about it. Calvin's calling us from Charlotte. We're so glad to hear from North Carolina. Calvin, what's happening in North Carolina that we can help you with?
I'm having a problem with weeping willows, which I am totally crazy about.
With weeping willow?
I've always seen them growing well up north, and I'm really crazy about weeping willows.
Okay. And what's happening with the ones that you've planted?
I planted 3 in my backyard, which is in a triangle position, about 2 in the back, 20 feet apart. There's one next to the house, about 30 feet from me, just both of them. And of all problems, all 3 of them died, but I have moles in my backyard, and I was curious whether the moles is eating the roots or anything like that.
Okay. Well, voles might have done that. And we have some information on voles that you can find. And also weeping willows, they really like to be in a place where there's a lot of moisture. And it may just be that you may have to enjoy them from afar and not be able to, you may find that you may not have the right environments, because they are a little picky. They like a very specific environment. Val, I want to tell you how much we appreciate your coming, and we'd like to know about this symposium, how we can learn more. So tell us if there's a website where we can go for information, please.
Yes, the South Carolina Midlands Master Gardener Association.org is the website to go to find out more information about getting tickets and learning about the speakers and the concurrent events that are happening. So if you're interested in lifelong learning and want to learn how you can help Mother Nature protect our birds and preserve them, go to that website and there'll be all the information you need.
All right, thank you. We hope you have a good turnout. And Teresa, we always appreciate your coming over, sharing water-wise tips with us and reminding us not to waste money on fertilizer.
Thanks, Amanda. It's always my pleasure to be here, and I absolutely love seeing all the photos that get shared on our Facebook page. I did want to mention, the caller said something about privet. We had a photo submitted that had red-spotted purple butterflies that were enjoying a plant that the person thought might be butterfly bush, but it turns out it's actually privet. And so even though the butterflies are enjoying that, I would recommend people try to get rid of the privet, because it really has done a huge damage to our natural areas, just taking over everything. But do continue to send your photos, questions for identification. We love it, and we do our best to get back to you in a timely manner. Amanda?
Thank you. Dan, thanks for making the trip down, and I think y'all are going to have some kind of fun evening under the stars.
It's going to be a wonderful event at the garden. It will be a wine tasting under the stars. There will be lots of heavy hors d'oeuvres, lots of really good varieties of wine, people to talk to you about the wine. And there'll be other drinks and everything, non-alcoholic drinks. So just come, enjoy the wonderful heavy hors d'oeuvres. A lot of the local foodieries, eateries will have there showcasing their stuff for the holiday parties and whatnot.
All right.
It'll be a great event.
And Kalmia Gardens in Hartsville, and go early and enjoy the garden before the corks are popped.
There you go.
And Vicky, it's always fun when you come. I just love having somebody who knows so much about insects and who's such a nut about insects. We talked about Gerald being a plant geek, but I tell you, Vicky's the insect geek.
I'm the bug geek.
Well, and they are fascinating. There's
Absolutely.
so much variety.
If folks would just give them a chance,
Yeah.
they're not yucky. They're actually pretty cool.
Okay. Your day on Monday, September the 29th, the great program that comes on SCE TV Radio, Tailgate Events, highlights agriculture. Bob Schuster's going to talk about that with Kirby Player. Lots of fun activities. And protecting natural places, Peter Kent's going to talk with the East Cooper Land Trust. There's a lot going on. Be sure to tune into your day, and we hope you'll tune in with us next week, because we're going to be back with another fun night, an hour of making it grow, and all kinds of answers and excitement. Night, night.
Making It Grow is brought to you in part by Santee Cooper, South Carolina's state-owned electric and water utility. More information on green power and energy conservation programs online at santeecooper.com. The South Carolina Department of Agriculture, reminding you that certified South Carolina agricultural products help make South Carolina grow. McLeod Farms in McBee, South Carolina. This family farm offers seasonal produce, including over 22 varieties of peaches. Glory Foods, celebrating Southern food with a soulful heritage. Glory Foods, a way of inviting South Carolina back to the dinner table. FTC Diversified, a proud part of your local communities, providing communication, entertainment, and security. Art Fields, a 10-day art competition in Lake City, South Carolina. Additional funding provided by International Paper.